Proud to be able to address you today, standing in for Victoria Taft, who unfortunately had a conflict and is engaged elsewhere. As you may know, Victoria was a leading force in organizing the Tea Party in Portland on Wednesday. The very first one she organized, we had 100 people. The police estimated on Wednesday we had 5,000 to 7,000. This effort by the American people from the grassroots is being denounced from the highest levels of government.
They're a mistake.
There you are. And by the elite class of this country that carried out and brought about this crisis in the economy and in our nation. And it's an irony that I speak to you today from a state named after the greatest patriot in our history, Amen. George Washington. I do not consider it progress that we have gone from a man who gave 45 years of his life wearing the uniform of his country as the commander-in-chief to a commander-in-chief who has never worn the uniform of the country that is now surveilling our own troops. It is outrageous that we now have a regime headed by a guy who bends from the waist when he meets the dictator of Saudi Arabia, one of the Muslim compatriots that he wants us to bow and scrape to. I suggest to you that no American should ever bow and scrape to terrorists, ever. I heard Lane speak of the founding of our country. Our forefathers showed us the way. I'm a lawyer, forgive me that. I'm also a veteran and a member of the American Legion. For that I apologize to no one. And first things first, I know there are veterans here. Raise your hands, let us acknowledge your service. I know too there are parents here whose children have served or whose fathers and brothers and uncles have served. You are Blue Star families. Raise your hands. Let us acknowledge you. We learned today from the Wall Street Journal that the FBI was ordered to surveil our veterans coming home from Vietnam, from Iraq, from Afghanistan, and those who have served us best. These young patriots are now being branded, as you are, as potential right-wing extremist terrorists. Despicable! If they are right-wing and extremists, then so am I. Are you? We have seen the President of the United States bow and scrape to a Muslim dictator, and yesterday we saw him embracing, shaking hands in a very strange way. I've seen Americans shake hands like that, but somehow they grasp each other's thumbs. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's another signal with him and Hugo Chavez. I suggest to you that when we have dictators like Hugo Chavez who call the President of the United States George Bush, who won the Iraqi war, when they call him Satan, we should not have a president of this country bowing and scraping to Hugo Chavez or Muslim dictators who are leading to terrorism.
That's right.
We know now from the despicable Department of Homeland Defense report that they have branded all of these soldiers as potential terrorists, right-wing extremists. I have a suggestion for Obama. Start your surveillance at Reed, Washington's Reed Hospital. Go to all those guys who've lost their limbs serving the country. Tell them they're extremists. Shame on you, Obama, and shame on you. There you go. That he's going to bring us all together. We've had no one person be more divisive than this president in his first 100 days. He's now announced an opening to Cuba. Whether or not the blockade should or should not be maintained. This is the first time in the history of the country where an American president said, some Americans can travel to another country, the rest of you cannot. What he's now said is, Cubans can go to Cuba, but none of you can if you're not a Cuban. Where did this ever begin that a president thought he could divide the American people and say, here's rights for you and not for you? We must stop this man before he destroys the country. And with me today, my daughter. She, her generation, and my grandchildren's generation are going to be paying this $1 trillion debt.
That's right.
That this regime has allowed to happen by having the rest of you pay the mortgages for people who lied to get theirs.
Amen.
To bail out corrupt lending institutions who knew exactly what they were doing when they drove this economy into pits. To bail out crooks in Wall Street and Washington, a number of whom were his advisors who are now sitting in prison. I suggest to you that we must save the future of our kids and our grandchildren by stopping this regime and stopping it now. Last thing I want to say to you is if you believe Obama can do it, I got some Obama bucks here for you. And I want you to use them to pay off your mortgage. There you go. Pay your taxes with these. And when they get my tax return in Washington, D.C., they're going to say, what in the hell is this? Okay. I'm told you couldn't hear me in the back. I'll start all over from the beginning.
No.
I want to close by saying this. America was built on the thought that government which governs least governs best. That's what Thomas Jefferson told us. We're also told that the only government that can work in this society is one which governs by the consent of the people. No longer deserve the consent of our people to drive us into the socialism or liberal fascism to which he's taking us at the expense of our children and grandchildren.
Not on our
So I
watch.
want to ask you, our country began in a belief in God and country. Do you still believe that we must serve God and country in America?